What up, Net fans? NetsBoy here, bringing your latest in your Brooklyn Nets news. All right, so a little bit to talk about since my last NetsBoy episode. It currently is 2 days after the NBA draft. It is June 27th, 2015, and there's a lot to discuss regarding the draft, and we'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to just reflect a little bit on the NBA Finals and what happened in the finals. So it was basically the Golden State Warriors versus the Cleveland LeBron Jameses, and the Warriors won. Basically, NetsBoy was right. Last episode NetsBoy was back around right after the Nets got eliminated. I said basically whoever wins between the Grizzlies and the Warriors will win the whole thing, and whoever wins between the Cavs and the Bulls will represent the Eastern Conference. And I was right. Warriors won that series. They won the whole thing. Cavs won that series against the Bulls. They came out of the Eastern Conference. And look, when you look at that series between the Warriors and the Cavs, like I said, it was just too much team. When Kyrie Irving went down in Game 1, it was over. It was over. LeBron James did everything he possibly can. He scored, averaged a triple-double, scored over 40 points a game, almost every triple-double, but just wasn't enough. And the truth is, though, that is how you want to beat LeBron James. LeBron James is the best player in the NBA, obviously, and they say he's the best player in the world. He says he's the best player in the world. And there's no doubt about it that he's the best, but he's not necessarily the most efficient at times. He really was not very efficient in that finals. I know everyone's going to look at, hey, he averaged almost a triple-double, he scored 40 points, but the guy shot 40%. All right? And yeah, he scored 40 points, but to shoot 40%, to score 40 points, that's not saying much. I would say about 70% of NBA players can score 40 points if they take about 30 shots a game. Just saying. That wasn't, to me, what was impressive. I know everyone's like, oh, it's 40 points. The 40 points wasn't impressive. What was impressive was the big shots that he made down the stretch a lot of times in games, the assists, the rebounding, the steals, the blocks. That, to me, is more impressive and more of what LeBron James is about than the 40 points. To be honest, LeBron James is not at his best when he has to score. He's not. He is not the best scorer in the NBA. He is not the best scorer to ever live. He's the best player, but there's a lot more players who are better at scoring, because that's the downside of LeBron James. He can score the basketball, but really, he's the most effective when he scores about 20 to 25 points a game, and that he's the focal point, but he has about 10 assists and gets about 8 rebounds and so like that. That's an effective and efficient LeBron James. LeBron James should not be taking more than about 20 to 25 shots a game, in my opinion. Not more, certainly not more than 25 shots. He should be taking about 20 to 25 shots a game and shoot around 45-50%. And that's good. He should be taking 30, 35 like he had to. But once again, I'm not knocking him because he had to take those shots because there was no one else in the Cavs who were doing anything else. So he had to do what he had to do. But that's my point, is if you want to beat LeBron James, make him become a scorer, because that means that no one else is doing anything else. And that also means that makes LeBron not as good of a player. His efficiency was not good in the finals. And if there's any knock I will have on LeBron James, is that his offensive game is a bit inconsistent. Not that he's not capable. He's going to score. He can score 20 points on any given night easily, because he's so strong and is a good enough finisher that he can get to the basket almost at will and either get fouled or finished. The problem is, though, the rest of his offensive game is inconsistent. His three shooting is very inconsistent. His mid-range jump shot is inconsistent. His low post game is inconsistent. All aspects, even his free throw shooting can sometimes be inconsistent. All aspects that he's actually can do when he's on his A game, he can make threes, make mid-range. He can do it all when he's on his A game. But when he struggles with those mid-range shots and those threes or those free throws, he's not as good of a player, because now he becomes one-dimensional. And yes, he's going to go to the basket. You can meet him with a lot of bodies like the Warriors did, which is why they were able to kind of slow him down a bit. But you're not going to stop LeBron James, but you can slow him down. And when he's being inconsistent with his shot, that's how you can do it. So that's how you beat LeBron James, and we saw that in that series. And, kudos to the Warriors. They got great contribution from everyone, and I'm very happy for Sean Livingston, being that a Nets fan, or, him being a former Nets fan, we're all rooting for him. I'm happy for them, and I think it would have been interesting to see if Kyrie Irving didn't get hurt, who knows what could have happened. And if Love didn't get hurt in the first round, that's another thing, who knows what could have happened. But overall, just too much team when it came to the Warriors, and not enough of anything else on the Cavs. And we'll see what happens next year. So congratulations to the Golden State Warriors. They were the best team throughout the whole entire season, and they kind of deserve the win, in my opinion. So that's that on the finals and my little LeBron James speech. Now let's talk about the NBA draft. So crazy draft. Obviously, Karl Anthony Towns went first overall. D'Angelo Russell went second. That didn't shock too many people. It kind of shocked people, actually. It kind of didn't. I think that a lot of people knew that the Lakers liked him, so I don't think it shocked that many people, but people liked Okafor. Okafor went third, so on and so forth. I'll play nice, and I won't say the next pick. Porzingis! Excuse me. Sneeze there. Yeah, that's just... Look, that's a good pick. I'm not going to lie. He's got unlimited potential. It's not the pick for the Knicks, but it's not a bad player. Like, Porzingis is definitely a top... I would say he's a top 5, top 10 for sure pick in that draft. Fourth, I don't know. You're trying to appeal to Carmelo Anthony and the Knicks fans and saying that we're going to start taking steps in the right direction. That's not a step in the right direction, and Carmelo's probably not too happy about it. Actually, the word on the street is he isn't, and Porzingis, he's going to be good. I think he will be a good player. I just think it's going to take 3 years, like they're saying. Guess what? 3 years from now, Carmelo's going to be like 32, and he's going to be on 2 years left on his contract, and he's not going to be happy. But who knows? That's I'm not going to really reflect too much on that one. I know Knicks fans are not so happy about that, so I'll just drop that. But the Nets, on the other hand, they did some things. They were trying to move up into the lottery by trading Plumlee in their 29th pick. Teams weren't really biting. Then they actually tried to trade Bojan Bogdanovic in the pick, which I thought was a little interesting because I thought Billy King and Lionel Hollins loved Bogdanovic, so why you're willing to part with him, but that means that they really wanted to get some guy in the lottery. But teams still weren't biting. So the Nets ended up going with Chris McCullough in the 29th overall pick. Now, Chris McCullough could be one of the steals of the drafts because there's not a lot that people know about him. He played only about 12 games last season with Syracuse before he tore his ACL. But basically, he's a very skilled, versatile big man. He's kind of like a Thaddeus Young type player in that he's a power forward, but he can kind of play the small forward spot, but he's really kind of more of an undersized power forward, but is skilled enough with his athleticism and quickness that he can make up for it. Basically, he's just a nice athletic power forward. Now, the Nets, to me, have gotten a little bit of a logjam in power forwards. I'm assuming they're going to bring back Thaddeus Young, so I'm assuming that. Thaddeus Young, Mirza Teletovic, Corey Jefferson, and now Chris McCullough. And they're all relatively type of similar players, except for Teletovic. But, Thad Young, Corey Jefferson, and McCullough are kind of all athletic power forwards. But who knows? The point is, Billy King said he was going to take the best available player at the time. McCullough probably was the best available player at the time, the 29th pick. He was projected to be a lottery pick before he tore his ACL. So I think that's a good move. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out when he recovers from the ACL injury. How good exactly will he be, and so on and so forth. But moving forward, we'll see what happens there. So then, after they did that, the Nets also then had the 41st pick, in which they drafted Pat Connaughton. Now, I didn't do a NetsBoy pre-draft episode. I was planning on doing it. my day job kind of got in the way, and I didn't have time to do it. But I, going into the draft, I said to people, not necessarily my NetsBoy viewers, but people, that if there's one player I want the Nets to get, who they possibly could get, is Pat Connaughton. And I am a huge Pat Connaughton fan. I think that he is one of the most underrated players in the draft. I think that he's going to be one of the steals of the draft. I mean, so much I love about the guy. He's extremely athletic, had a 44-inch vertical leap, has NBA range. He's a great tough-nosed player. He led Notre Dame in rebounds and blocks. The guy is 6'5". The only way you're 6'5" and leading a team in rebounding and blocks is either everyone else sucks, which is kind of the case, that Notre Dame really didn't have that many bigs, or that he just out-hustles everyone, which he does. I just love to bring up the Kentucky Notre Dame Elite 8 game. He was phenomenal in that, knocking down big threes, slashing to the basket, making layups, and dunking the ball, out-rebounding Karl Anthony Towns, the first overall pick, having more blocks than Cauley Stein, 6th overall pick. This guy is great. Now, the knock on him, he's a little undersized. He's not the quickest guy around laterally, but to me, his toughness just makes up for it, and his ability to knock down threes. I was so excited when the Nets drafted him. I said, this is what I want. I was about to go buy a Pat Connaughton jersey. So I said, oh, this is great. I'm going to go to sleep now because I had to wake up the next morning. So I went to sleep literally right after the Nets drafted Connaughton. Went to sleep with a smile on my face. Woke up the next morning. Said, gee, I wonder what happened with the rest of the NBA draft. Went online, ESPN, and what do I see? The Nets traded Pat Connaughton. Rip my heart out, why don't you, Billy King? Rip my heart out. I mean, I don't want to go on and say that it's a mistake to trade Connaughton, but I'm very disappointed in it. Now, before I go on my Pat Connaughton rant, let me just specify they did get a really good player in Rondé Hollis Jefferson in that deal. All right, they ended up trading Mason Plumlee as well, and they also got Steve Blake in that deal, and I'll go into that in a second. But yeah, Rondé Hollis Jefferson is a great player, and I'm not going to, before I get into the Connaughton rant, I'm not going to try to say anything about him. I'm glad the Nets got him. He's a versatile 6'7" wing. He can, one of the best on-the-ball defenders around. He's a great athlete, can finish above the rim, a very good slasher. He's kind of like Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. He really is. Similar style, that he's going to be an impact player right away. He's versatile, athletic, be able to finish above the rim, guard any position. The knock, though, is he can't really shoot. That's the knock on Kidd-Gilchrist. That's the knock on Hollis Jefferson. So, but other than that, I mean, he's a really good player, and he can come right in and play and be a rotational player and be very effective for the Nets, which is why I think Billy King wanted to bring him in. And I think that he has a lot of potential, too, a lot of upside. And I don't dislike the fact the Nets got him. I just don't like the fact they traded Pat Connaughton. I think they could have traded anyone else of their young players. Maybe Corey Jefferson. Or maybe Chris McCullough, who they just got. Not Pat Connaughton. But either way, I think Rondé Hollis Jefferson is going to be a fantastic player for the Nets. He's going to fit right in. He can play alongside Joe Johnson if the Nets keep Joe Johnson. And I think that, I think it's a good move by the Nets, but I just wish they didn't give up Connaughton in it. I mean, Pat Connaughton, like I said, the guy is, to me, he's a winner. He's a grinder. He's a winner. He hustles hard. He's got a great heart. The Nets needed to do three main things going into the draft. They needed to get a young, athletic player who could shoot the basketball and who has toughness. Connaughton's got all three. In my opinion, Rondé Hollis Jefferson only has two. He's got toughness and athleticism, but doesn't have the shooting ability. Now, I mean, Hollis Jefferson's athleticism. I don't even want to say his athleticism is more than Connaughton's. Guy had a 44-inch vertical leap. That's impressive. Very impressive. So I'm going to go and say that the athleticism is the same. Obviously, the toughness is about the same in my opinion. But I think it's the defense that Hollis Jefferson brings that Connaughton doesn't. Connaughton's a great shot blocker, but not a great on-the-ball defender. He's not laterally quick, but I don't care. He's athletic and he can shoot, and he has NBA range. He makes big shots. I mean, he made huge shots against Butler in the NCAA tournament. He made big plays against Kentucky in the Elite Eight game. I mean, he can block shots, he can rebound, he can shoot. He's a winner. He's a great player, and I'm very disappointed. And I'm going to go on the record, and I'm going to say it. I am. I'm going on the record right now. Here it is, June 27th. NetsBoy's going on the record and saying that Pat Connaughton is going to be this draft class Draymond Green. What do I mean by that? He's going to be the second-round draft pick who, in a couple of years, is going to be a key contributor to a championship team and be one of the main factors a team wins a championship. Because that's the type of player Pat Connaughton is. That's the type of player that he's capable of being, and that's the type of player I think he will be, which is why I'm devastated that the Nets traded him away. Devastated. He is a great fit. He is a great player, and I wish nothing but success for him with Portland. But I'm just very frustrated that the Nets traded him when all I wanted was them to draft him. He was the one player. They drafted him, and they let him go. They traded him away. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I usually am not wrong when it comes to what I believe of how certain players are going to play from the collegiate level. Because I watch a lot of college basketball, and one thing that I do when I watch college basketball is the one thing I'm always processing: how would this guy really be in the NBA? And for example, Hasheem Thabeet I knew was going to be a bust. I said it from day one. When DeJuan Blair out-hustled and out-muscled and completely dominated him, I knew Hasheem Thabeet was going to be a bust. That was something I kind of thought so immediately. I thought Anthony Bennett was a terrible draft pick to be first overall. I said this guy does not, in my opinion, does not have the true enough skill set or quickness that he could possibly be in the NBA. Not that I'm saying that should be a scout, but I've been pretty right of who are going to be busts and who aren't going to be. I mean, I actually thought Draymond Green, believe it or not, was going to have a very good NBA career. Not as good as he's doing, but I thought he had a lot of upside to his skill set. I thought Markel Brown has a lot of potential and has got his upside, and we're seeing that. So on and so forth. But that's beside the point. I see a lot of greatness in Pat Connaughton, and I also see. For Rondé Hollis Jefferson, I don't see greatness. I see solid play. I see Rondé Hollis Jefferson being a very solid rotational player and probably a quality starter for his career. I don't know if he'll be a star. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll be a star player. Definitely not a superstar, but he'll be a good rotational, maybe starter. And I don't think Connaughton's going to be a star either. I'm just saying Connaughton's going to be an X-factor player. And those players are very important to have on your team. And like I said, I'm not mad that the Nets traded for Hollis Jefferson. I just wish they'd put Connaughton in the deal. But that being said, that's my Pat Connaughton rant. That's just a little bit of disappointment. I had to get that off my chest. But also in that trade, the Nets traded away Mason Plumlee and got Steve Blake. Now, listen, we knew Plumlee was out. The Nets were talking about trading him from the very beginning of the draft for moving up. Plumlee just simply didn't work with Brook Lopez, and when Plumlee was forced to come off the bench, he didn't respond as well as we thought he would. He was kind of trying to overcompensate for being taken out of the starting lineup. He was trying to do too much instead of playing a niche of being an energy, tough guy. And he didn't play well with Lopez, and like I said, who are you going to pick between Mason Plumlee and Brook Lopez? You're going to pick Brook Lopez, especially the way he played down the stretch. So obviously Lopez, they're anticipating bringing him back. So Plumlee's gone. You know what? I wish nothing but success for Mason Plumlee. He was great when he was with the Nets. Little sad, little disappointed to see him go, but honestly, it makes sense. He was not working with Lopez, and so I wish he could have, because I think Plumlee would have been a great backup center, but Didn't work out, so he was put in that trade. Personally, I would have wished that they used Plumlee to trade for maybe a little bit more established player than Hollis Jefferson, but I'm not going to be upset about it. But also in the deal, the Nets got Steve Blake. Now, Steve Blake is a very decent backup point guard. He can play the two as well. He's a quality backup. He's on the downside of his career, but he's still a capable point guard who can play alongside Darren Williams. The trade for him might mean that Jarrett Jack is on his way out. Similar to the fact of Plumlee not working with Lopez, Jack didn't work well playing next to Darren Williams because they're both ball-dominant point guards. So, but Blake can play off of of Darren Williams. So, possibly I think Jarrett Jack is on his way out too. There's a lot of moves I think the Nets can do. I'm not going to talk about that now. Actually, I'll probably have another NetsBoy episode probably in about a week or so when free agency starts, talking about the moves I want the Nets to do. But I think Jack's on his way out. But getting Steve Blake and Rondé Hollis Jefferson are good pickups for the Nets, and I'm happy about that. Losing Plumlee, I think it was a necessity, and just Pat Connaughton, damn, upset about that. But I think the Nets are going to make some good moves. Should make some moves over the offseason. I think that they're making steps in the right direction, improving their team moving forwards. The Nets also, on an unrelated note, got the rights to this European Juan Valette. He's probably not going to come for a year or two, but he's a decent wing player as well that the Nets could maybe trade or something. I mean, I think the point of what Billy King has done here with this team, and I think this might be a big reason for it, the Nets have assets now. A lot of young assets. They don't have many draft picks. They only really have the 2017 Celtics pick that they can really trade. They don't have a first rounder next season because they traded it away. But they have the 2017 pick, and then they have the 2019 pick. But really what the Nets have is some good young talented players. They have, from last year, they have Markel Brown and Corey Jefferson, Sergei Karasev, Bojan Bogdanovic. They just now traded for Rondé Hollis Jefferson and Chris McCullough. That is 6 very solid young prospects who all have potential to be something, not necessarily superstars, but quality players. And when you have that many quality young players, there's a good chance that some of them are going to be traded. And I think that could be the approach Billy King's doing. That's the approach I would do, personally. I would say, listen, we have 6 young players. There's no way all 6 of them are going to contribute to our team. We're going to trade some of these guys and get some other players that we can do. Because now the Nets got some assets. They've got some young, talented players that can either build for the future if the Nets want to go that route with Brook Lopez and so forth, or assets to trade. So it's interesting to see what will happen moving forward. But basically, the Nets have some options. Like I said, the next NetsBoy episode is going to be some of the trades or moves that I think the Nets should do. There's a lot. I've been playing with the trade machine for a while. Tons of fun scenarios that I think the Nets could try to pull off, or that they should try to do. But overall, to sum everything up, LeBron James wasn't enough against the Warriors in the finals. The Nets got 2 really good young players in Rondé Hollis Jefferson and Chris McCullough that are very good players. They had Pat Connaughton, very disappointingly traded it away. I'm never going to forgive him for that, especially if I'm right and Connaughton has a great career or becomes such a great player. And we'll see what happens moving forward. There's a lot of excitement now. This is when things get excited. This is what I really like because, I love the NBA offseason because this is the stuff I live for. I've mentioned before, I always kind of wanted to be a general manager, especially the Nets general manager. This is the time that the Nets general managers do things. And so I'm excited to see what happens, and we'll see what happens moving forward. So, like I said, look out for the next NetsBoy episode. Might be in about a week. And I'll talk about some of the moves I think the Nets should do then. So, until then, this is NetsBoy. Still upset that the Nets no longer have Pat Connaughton. They had him for like 30 seconds or like 30 minutes. But either way, this is NetsBoy signing off.